The name of this podcast, Profitable Nonprofits, might sound like an oxymoron to some people. After all, isn't the whole point of a nonprofit to not make money? Actually, that's one of the biggest myths in the sector, and it's holding too many organizations back. So today, we're talking about why the term nonprofit does not mean no revenue, and why your organization must be financially successful if you want to have long-term impact. Welcome to Profitable Nonprofits. I'm Bernadette Mack, and I help nonprofit leaders just like you build sustainable, thriving organizations without the burnout. If you're tired of constantly chasing donations, or you struggle with engagement, or you're wondering how to make a bigger impact, well, you're in the right place. Each week, we tackle real nonprofit challenges with practical, no-fluff strategies that you can apply right away. You're doing all the hard work, so now let's make it a little easier. Thanks for being here. This is episode 3, and we're talking about the misconception about the word nonprofit. Many people assume that nonprofits shouldn't make money or that accumulating funds is somehow unethical. And this is simply not true. Now, I might be preaching to the choir here, and I'm sure I am, because I'm sure that there are a lot of you out there who wish people would realize what having nonprofit status actually means. Because people who don't truly understand the definition of nonprofit, what it means and doesn't mean, think that nonprofits are required to struggle, that they're required to not have cash in the bank, they're required to break even or take a loss all the time. And this misconception is a very big problem if the people believing it are your board members, your prospective donors, or even your team members. And unfortunately, this type of thinking can be subconscious. People aren't even necessarily aware that they think this way. So first off, I just want to say nonprofit is a tax status. It's not a business model. Organizations receive this special status by agreeing to work on a stated mission. And that's something that's normally listed in the Articles of Incorporation. And the proceeds of those efforts are not supposed to go towards enriching any one person or group. And that right there is an important distinction. So like if Sally Smith starts a nonprofit or starts a for-profit business, Sally gets all the proceeds. The point is personal enrichment. If she starts a nonprofit business, the mission gets all the money. The point is the mission. A nonprofit's revenue must be reinvested into the mission. That's the main rule. And in exchange for that, the organization receives special tax benefits. Most people understand all of this at a conceptual level, but the concept starts to break down when we put it into practice. So let's take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll start digging into the very bad ideas that people get when they think nonprofits can't or shouldn't make money. Let me start out by clarifying something right off the bat. We all know that there are mega nonprofits out there whose operating budgets are in the millions or billions, whose salaries are inflated, whose executives receive all kinds of crazy perks, and so on and so forth. These are rare, and they are not the organizations I'm talking about. I'm specifically referring to the 95% of nonprofits whose budget is less than $1 million. That's right, 95% of nonprofits in the US have a budget less than $1 million. And these are the folks that I'm talking about, some of whom might actually be able to grow their budgets over $1 million if less people had such misguided views on how nonprofits ought to handle their money. I once worked with an organization that had over $1 million in cash in the bank. It was the result of many years of beating the budget on both sides, spending less and raising more, year over year over year. Sounds great, right? Well, it turns out no. The organization was in need of critical infrastructure improvements, among other things, like hiring staff and improving their website. Lots of things. So it took literally years of campaigning and sometimes begging to get the board to agree to spend money on anything significant. Because while they were once in trouble financially, they had to go into like a starvation mode, but they couldn't step back out of that mode in order to do the things that would allow the organization to keep surviving and growing. This is many times why we see great nonprofit employees get totally burned out and run for the hills, because the organization thinks they should keep doing it all instead of strategically growing the team to match the workload, or why nonprofits seem to trail behind for-profit businesses in things like technology, because they're unwilling to make the unnecessary investments in hardware and software that would allow everyone to do better work or make a bigger impact. I still see this type of behavior at nonprofits that have like healthy bank balances, but they're still struggling to survive and grow on the staff that they have. What good is all that money doing if it's not helping you achieve your goals? And before you get me wrong, I'm not recommending spending down all your capital or adding staff without a solid plan that can sustain their new salaries. What I am saying is that a better plan is to have a sound financial strategy that allows you to save and invest a certain amount of money for security in the future, and that allows you to spend a certain amount of money. Having a spending policy, for instance, one that even offers the option of spending money, like maybe above and beyond a specific threshold, it means that you're not just stuck in a holding pattern, the victim of other people's opinions about how you spend the organization's money, instead of using your own professional judgment about the best ways to improve and grow your organization. Remember, your board members are probably not nonprofit professionals. They are probably employees or for-profit business owners who don't properly understand that nonprofits are not designed to be poor. They are designed to do incredible and incredibly meaningful work, which requires proper use of funds and wise fiscal decision-making. And here's just a side note for any board members that might be listening. I know that not all of you believe that nonprofits shouldn't make money, but it's important to recognize that there are enough of your colleagues sitting next to you around the board table who do hold these antiquated ideas. The best thing you can do is to get involved in the finance committee and to notice if your organization seems stuck in starvation mode or just generally fearful of spending money to the detriment of the mission. Ask questions about how this type of behavior might be holding the organization back. And one more thing, and this might seem a little critical or controversial, but let's be honest about the fact that nonprofit boards can sometimes be filled by people who enjoy having power. Maybe they don't have a lot of decision-making power in their regular jobs or even at home, and they just can't resist the allure to control the staff and scrutinize their every expenditure. I know that's not you, but those people are out there. So on that note, let's just take another quick break and come back and go over a few more bad ideas that people get when they think nonprofits can't be profitable. And one big idea that I need you to hear and just absorb into your very being. Okay, before we go on, I want to tell you that if by this point in the show you're thinking, sheesh, I know better, and I still act like our organization is poor and has to hang on to every precious dollar we make, this is completely normal. It's the way that we've been trained to think about nonprofits. In our quest to be fiscally responsible and prove our organization's worthiness, we've had to turn off that part of our brains that wants to focus on innovation and growth. We see other people scrutinizing nonprofits, harping about overhead, and we think that's the norm. And maybe it is, but that doesn't make it right or effective. We internalize that belief, We accept that our staff is underpaid, we accept that our programs are underfunded, and we think it's okay to expect more from less. The ridiculous pressure to show that every dollar goes into programming rather than investing in infrastructure, salaries, and long-term growth is damaging. And it has us operating scared and accomplishing far less than we could have with proper financial support. And here's something that personally drives me bananas, and it's done all the time. Instead of paying for professional service and receiving a high-quality product, we accept favors from well-meaning people like the business owners on our boards when they offer to do this or that for free. And so we get what they are willing to provide on whatever timetable works for them. And face it, pro bono work is rarely top priority. So instead of getting what you paid for at the time that you actually need it, projects tend to drag on while you wait for people to do you favors. Favors are wonderful, and many people can deliver what they promise and have the very best intentions. People can be amazingly generous in this way. But more often than not, I see these arrangements going south, not benefiting the organization, and sometimes eventually costing more in the long run. But as executive directors or other staff, we're pressured to accept such favors, and it would be seen irresponsible to reject a free offer. I'm a firm believer in you get what you pay for, and that's certainly true if you paid nothing at all. And at least if you're a paying customer, there's some sort of recourse if you don't get what you paid for. With a chummy favor, if you don't get what you need when you need it, it can lead to sour relationships and lost time and money. But nonprofits are expected to accept any handout it can get. And I'm just not into it. I know that mindset talk is trendy and buzzwordy, but it needs to be said that having a scarcity mindset about budgeting and running your nonprofit is only going to hold you back. If finance is not your forte, surround yourself with finance committee members who understand the principles of organizational growth and who can help you budget each year for what you need. There will be seasons when you need to budget for a surplus so that you can build up your reserves. And there will be times when you need to budget to break even and maintain the status quo. And there will be times when you'll need to budget for a loss in order to make critical investments in the business and to set it up for even more future success. Knowing when to do each of these is an important part. And sure, it feels great to beat the budget all the time. Look how much we saved. But that's not a sustainable financial strategy if you expect to accomplish what you've set out to do. Many nonprofits default to having break-even budgets out of fear. But a surplus budget can be a smart strategic move, and it doesn't mean hoarding cash. Hey, nonprofit friends, are your finances setting you up for sustainability or stress? If budgeting and financial planning feel overwhelming, you're not alone. That's why I put together the Budget Worksheet and Finance Primer. It's a practical resource to help you record important financial practices, design a budget process, and ensure that your organization stays financially healthy. No more confusion, just clear steps to financial confidence. Download your copy today at BernadetteMac.com and scroll down to resources and take control of your nonprofit's financial future. All right, so we've talked about all the bad ideas we get when we think that nonprofits shouldn't be making a profit. Now I want to tell you something that I hope eventually you can use to replace that old scarcity thinking. Your mission deserves more money. Now, normally I stay away from the word deserve because, what does that even mean really? But this is up to you and the people that you work with. If your mission is as important as you say it is, it deserves to be well funded. It deserves to have the best people possible working on it. It deserves smart reinvestment into the technology and people who will keep it relevant and effective. So instead of trying to do everything for everyone and scraping by, refusing to spend, relying on favors, a better plan is to narrow your scope. Do a better job doing less things and demand the highest quality investments in the future of your mission. And this is going to mean different things to different organizations, but the idea is the same. Stop acting like a charity just because you are one. Be frugal, be creative, be grateful and thankful, but don't be sorry. Your mission deserves the best it can get. And remember that being a successful organization also means being a good steward of the funds that come to you. That means the funds are not wasted and spent on things that don't really matter, but it also means that funds are not sitting idle when they were supposed to be used towards your mission. There's a reason why fundraising pitches are not, please donate so we can put your money in the bank and let it sit there. The point is to spend the money wisely, strategically, to improve the organization's ability to carry out its mission. So that's why I named this podcast Profitable Nonprofits. The term profitable means sustainability, investment, and growth. My work often focuses on fundraising strategy because that's the easiest way to get nonprofit leaders to take notice and to make the real changes they need. The return on investment of making operational improvements like bylaws, governance, budgeting, messaging, it's harder to see. But these are the things that make organizations more effective fundraisers. To me, a profitable nonprofit is one that pays fair wages, builds reserves, invests in innovation, and scales their impact. This week, I challenge you to take a hard look at your nonprofit's budget. Are you operating in a scarcity mindset or a growth mindset? What would change if you budgeted for a surplus or even a loss instead of just trying to break even? Send me a message or leave me a voicemail at 914-297-7692 because I'd love to hear your thoughts. Remember, nonprofits don't exist to make money, but they can't exist without money. So let's make financial success the standard in the sector so that great missions can thrive. Thanks for listening. And if you found this episode helpful, subscribe and leave a review and share it with someone you know. See you next time. Thanks for tuning in to Profitable Nonprofits. If you found this episode helpful, be sure to subscribe so you never miss a new one. Also, consider providing a 5-star rating and help more nonprofit leaders find the show. For more resources and strategies to grow your nonprofit, visit BernadetteMac.com. And if you have a question or a topic you'd love me to cover, send me a message or leave me a voicemail at 914-297-7692. I'd love to hear from you. Until next time, keep up the good work. And remember, running a nonprofit is tough, but you're tougher.